Ranger Carla Kingston had always felt at home in the cool, echoing corridors of Mammoth Cave. She'd spent years working for the National Park Service, guiding visitors through the longest cave system in the world, marveling at ancient rock formations and teaching people about the geologic wonders beneath Kentucky's rolling hills. Yet for all that experience, she had never shaken her respect for the cave's vastness. Even seasoned rangers knew you never truly conquered Mammoth Cave. You only visited a small fraction of its tunnels, aware that hundreds of unexplored corridors and undiscovered chambers branched beyond the map's edges. Until this week, that respect had never been tinted with fear. It began on a Wednesday morning in early autumn. Leaves above ground were starting to turn russet and gold, and a crispness hung in the outside air. Deep below, the cave maintained its eternal cool climate, the same gentle hush and unchanging temperature year-round. Carla led a group of 15 tourists down into the cave's main entrance, lanterns casting warm halos of light on the limestone walls. She greeted them with her usual spiel. "Welcome to Mammoth Cave, folks, the longest-known cave system on Earth, with more than 400 miles of mapped passageways and counting. We'll only see a tiny fraction today, but I promise it's a fraction you won't forget." The group was a typical mix: families with curious children, a few older couples, some adventurous-looking backpackers. Their footsteps scuffed the gravel path as they descended deeper, their breath echoing off ancient stone. Carla's own footsteps were sure and familiar. She'd guided hundreds of tours along these corridors without incident. They reached the rotunda, an expansive chamber with a high ceiling. Carla paused to show them fossils embedded in the rock, described the cave's historical significance, and pointed out a few lesser-known side tunnels blocked to the public. As usual, visitors gazed into those dark offshoots, imaginations ablaze with what might lie beyond. A small child pressed close to her mother, glimpsing only blackness. Carla joked, "Don't worry, no monsters in these caves." She'd said that line for years with a wry grin, but this time, for reasons she couldn't name, it felt forced. They continued. About halfway through the route, the group paused to admire a dramatic flowstone formation. That was when a tall tourist in a red windbreaker, face partially hidden by the lantern's glow, raised a hand. "Ranger, is someone else back there?" Carla blinked. "Back where?" He pointed to the corridor behind them, the path they'd just traversed. The group turned, lanterns lifting. Shadows danced on the walls. Carla saw no one. "I don't see anything," she replied. The man insisted. "I swear I saw a silhouette, a person just beyond the light, maybe 20 feet behind us." A few other tourists murmured. Some glances exchanged. Carla carefully stepped back a few paces, shining her flashlight. The corridor stretched empty. It might have been the flicker of the lantern. "Shadows can play tricks," she said. She'd witnessed illusions many times, rocks or protrusions that momentarily resembled a figure. "We're alone here, folks. I can assure you that." Nods of acceptance, some nervous laughter. They pressed on. Carla, however, felt a twinge of unease. For the rest of that tour, she caught herself glancing over her shoulder more than once. Each time, the corridor behind them was just an expanse of dimly lit rock, no sign of a follower. She told herself it was nerves, an overactive imagination spurred by the tourist's comment. Yet she couldn't quite shake the feeling that something was off. That afternoon, Carla finished tours and handled paperwork in the visitor center. The park closed at dusk. After the last group left, she locked up the main gates, then returned to the administrative offices near the cave entrance to finish a final chore. She told herself the day's odd tension was silly, just a trick of the lighting and tourists' minds, but her shoulders remained tense. The corridor leading to her office had a large window overlooking the main path near the cave's mouth. She paused there, eyes drifting to the descending walkway. The evening light cast long shadows. The entrance stood barred behind steel gates. All was silent. Something flickered on the security camera feed. She frowned, stepping into the small security room to watch the monitors. They displayed various angles inside the cave's publicly accessible section's grainy video, mostly dark, but useful for safety checks or ensuring no one wandered in after hours. The footage was on its usual rotation. She was about to switch it off for the night when a shape appeared on one screen, near an intersection that had been empty moments before. Her heart thumped. The camera was in night vision mode, so everything was tinted greenish. The shape was tall, humanoid, but so dark it almost seemed to absorb light. For a moment it stood at the edge of the corridor, just where the main tour path branched. Then it moved, retreating out of frame with unnerving speed. Carla straightened. "Hello?" she said aloud, as if the feed might answer. She rewound the footage, played it again. The shape was there. She checked the next camera angle from that corridor, found nothing. Could it be an error? Another ranger? She scanned the logs. No one else was scheduled to be in the cave. Mind racing, she made a quick decision. I'll check in person. She grabbed a flashlight, radio, and headed to the main entrance. She unlocked the gate, stepping inside the first few yards. Her beam swept over rock walls. The air was cold and stale, as always. Silence. She advanced slowly to the corridor intersection. Nothing. The only footprints were from the day's tours. She lingered, listening to the faint drip of water. No movement. Eventually she retreated, heart still pounding. She locked the gates, double-checked them, and returned to the security office. Probably a glitch, she muttered, though she didn't fully believe it. By midnight, she left for home. Sleep did not come easily. The next morning, Carla arrived at dawn, determined to shrug off last night's eerie sightings. She busied herself preparing for new tours, checking flashlights, verifying the route. Typically, the cave would see a moderate crowd, especially in fall. She put on a professional smile, greeting the first wave of visitors. She tried to keep the memory of that strange shadow at bay. Around mid-morning, a co-worker named Trevor approached, looking spooked. "Hey, Carla, can you come see something weird in the main passage? A volunteer found it." His tone was subdued. She followed him, anxiety twisting her stomach. They ventured into the cave's public zone, up to a section not far from the rotunda. There, on a stretch of limestone wall, they found deep gouges in the rock, 4 parallel scratches slanting downward, each at least 3 inches wide and half an inch deep. Carla stared, swallowing. Did someone vandalize the cave overnight? Trevor shook his head. That's no normal vandal, these claw marks. Look at the spacing. Each track is bigger than a human hand, and the stone is extremely hard. Even with a chisel, this would be tough. But they're fresh. No moss or dust. He ran a gloved hand lightly over them. I don't see any metallic scrape residue. More like something with actual claws. The concept was absurd. Carla forced a wry chuckle. We have black bears above ground, but not down here, and no bears have claws that big. She felt a chill. Memories of the silent figure in the camera replayed. Could it be an elaborate prank? She carefully snapped photos, planning to show park management. A group of visitors approached, and she quickly directed them around the spot, conjuring a polite excuse about possible geologic features. Inside, her mind churned with worry. That evening, with tours done, Carla retreated to the security room again. She wanted to see if the cameras had caught anything near that spot last night. The cave's labyrinth of corridors had multiple cameras, though many were older. She combed through hours of footage. Initially, nothing unusual, just the empty hush of the cave. Then around 3 a.m., a flicker. A tall silhouette glided across the camera's vantage near the very wall where the claw marks were found. Carla sat upright, heart thudding. She slowed the footage. The figure moved in a strangely fluid manner, arms long. Even in the grainy black and white, the posture was unnatural, torso slightly hunched. It paused, turning its head as if scanning the darkness. Then one elongated limb reached out, pressed against the wall. Carla could imagine the slow rasp of nails or claws biting into stone. She stared, transfixed. Suddenly, the silhouette jerked around, as though sensing the camera. For a second, 2 pinpoints shone from its face eyes, reflecting IR light. Then the feed went static, cutting out for half a minute. When it resumed, the corridor was empty. Shivers rippled through Carla. She rewound, freeze-framed, the instant those eyes glinted. The shape was humanoid, but too tall, perhaps over 7 feet. No clear features except that horrifying sense of elongated limbs. She swallowed, copying the clip onto a USB drive to show her supervisor. She also replayed footage from the day's tours, scanning for any anomalies. Then her blood ran cold. In the morning's earliest tour, the one she led, The camera occasionally panned behind the group. At first it showed standard visitors. Then, in a distant corner of the feed, she noticed the same tall silhouette. It stood well behind them in the corridor, unmoving, half shrouded in shadow. She advanced the footage. As Carla's group moved forward, the figure seemed to watch. It never came into the lantern's radius. Only the IR camera picked up its outline. Oh my God, she thought. Worse still, in multiple frames it drew nearer. Always behind them, but never noticed by anyone. By the last camera along that route, it was right behind Carla, less than a few feet away. Yet she had no idea. Her breath quickened. The figure loomed in each shot, arms slightly outstretched as if it could reach out any second. Then the footage ended, the group emerging into a lit area. The figure vanished from the final angle. Carla's hands shook. It was behind me the whole time. Carla rushed to her supervisor, Mike Rowland, presenting the video evidence. Mike watched, jaws clenching, expression grim. How is this possible? We secure the cave entrances. There shouldn't be any unauthorized person in those deeper areas. Unless it's not a person, Carla said quietly. She recounted the tourist who saw a figure, the claw marks. Mike ran a hand through his hair. We have to assume maybe it's an intruder in some bizarre costume. But those marks on the wall, no average prankster can do that. He paused, struggling to maintain logic. We'll post extra staff at the entrances, alert the local law enforcement if needed. But we can't start telling visitors we have a monster. Carla nodded. Agreed. But we need a plan. More cameras? Drones in the deeper chambers? She felt a swirl of dread. She was sure they faced something beyond a mere trespasser. But how to proceed? They decided to discreetly close certain tours, citing maintenance. They'd limit visitors to safer sections, intensify security checks. Carla insisted on personally patrolling the cave one night with a partner. Mike hesitated but finally conceded, assigning Trevor to join her. The idea was to see if they could catch the intruder or discover hidden passages it used. They set the operation for the following night. As nighttime fell, Carla and Trevor geared up. Heavy flashlights, radios, climbing ropes, plus tranquilizer darts. An overabundance of caution, though they had little idea if it'd help. They ventured into the main corridors after all public tours ended, aiming to search the zone where the figure had been recorded. The cave was eerily quiet without the usual visitor chatter. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally loud. Water dripped occasionally. Unseen, the air felt heavier. Feels like the caves. Waiting, Trevor whispered. Carla forced a smile. We'll be fine. They moved deeper, scanning every alcove, shining lights up into stalactite-laden ceilings. Occasionally they paused, straining ears for a footstep or breathing. Nothing. After an hour, they reached the corridor where the claw marks were. Carla found them as deep as ever, each groove giving her goosebumps. She noticed a faint, rancid odor like decaying vegetation. You smell that? She asked softly. Trevor nodded, grimacing. Suddenly, a soft scraping noise made them freeze. It came from a side passage rarely used by tours, blocked by a sign reading, "Authorized personnel only." They exchanged glances. Trevor lifted his flashlight, nodded for Carla to follow. Her heart hammered as they stepped over the barrier. The passage sloped downward, narrower, the ceiling pressing overhead. The stale air thickened. That stench grew stronger. The scraping continued, echoing in the distance. They advanced slowly. The corridor curved, opening into a small chamber. Their beams revealed a scene that made Carla's stomach lurch. The limestone floor was scored by more claw-like marks. Some rock shards lay about, and in a corner, an arrangement of dusty bones, animal bones, maybe, but suspiciously large. Possibly deer or even some bigger mammal, though how they got in here was a mystery. The sight churned her gut. Trevor whispered, "This is insane." She nodded, sweat beading on her brow despite the cool air. Then the scraping sounded again from behind them. They spun around, shining flashlights back into the corridor. At first, they saw only shadows. Then a shape darted out of view, a fleeting glimpse of something tall, hunched. Trevor raised the tranquilizer rifle, voice trembling. "We know you're there. Show yourself." Silence. Then a whisper that seemed to emanate from the darkness itself. "Carla, help me." Her name in an eerie, distorted tone, exactly as she'd heard in the footage. She inhaled sharply, terror flooding her. The voice repeated, "Help me." A bizarre mimicry, as if the creature had learned human speech from overhearing their calls. Trevor's knuckles whitened on the rifle stock. Carla mustered a shaky breath. "We need to leave, regroup." She gestured back the way they came. Trevor nodded, but as they retreated, the corridor behind them suddenly resonated with movement, a scraping shuffle. They backed away, hearts pounding. The corridor felt like it was closing in. Another corridor branched left, a route they'd never used, but continuing forward was impossible if that entity blocked them. Carla glanced at Trevor, then hurried left. He followed. Their light scanned a twisting route. The smell grew worse, a pungent decay that made eyes water. For 15 minutes, they stumbled through labyrinthine passages, losing track of distance. The only thought was to escape. No map guided them. They were in rarely charted territory. At last they found a sign referencing a path to the main corridor. They exhaled relief following it. However, an unsettling sensation persisted, as though being pursued. The gloom teased them with flickers of movement at the edges of vision. When they finally rejoined the known route, they broke into a sprint toward the exit. They emerged into the upper chamber near the rotunda, the glow of installed lights a welcome reprieve from total darkness. Gasping for breath, they slowed. No sign of the creature behind them, but the memory of that scuttling shape and the whispered mimic voice etched into Carla's mind. She felt profoundly violated, as if the cave's safety was shattered. They retreated to the surface, adrenaline surging. They told Mike what happened. He stared, pale, phone in hand. "We have to close the cave to the public until we figure this out. This is beyond normal hazards," he said, voice grim. Word spread discreetly among the park staff. Officially, a minor structural concern and air quality issues forced indefinite closure. Tourists were turned away with apologies. Some rangers grumbled about lost revenue. Others sensed deeper dread. Locals began whispering rumors of a cryptid in Mammoth Cave, an ancient entity. The staff maintained secrecy, but the tension grew. That evening, Carla replayed the new security footage, hoping to catch clarity. Instead, it brought fresh nightmares. In many camera angles, the same tall figure prowled corridors after hours, weaving through the darkest corners. Sometimes it paused to stare at the lens, eyes glinting. In one clip, it scaled a cave wall with unnatural agility, clinging to protrusions like an insect. Then it disappeared from sight. Its presence was no fluke. This was its domain, and then Carla found something that made her blood run cold. In the footage from the prior night, she saw Trevor and herself exploring that side chamber. In the background of certain frames, the creature lurked behind them. Whenever they turned, it vanished behind a stalagmite. She fast-forwarded, seeing them leave the chamber. Then came a new angle. The creature came up to the camera, looked directly into it, exposing a gaunt face with hollow, reflective eyes and blackish teeth. Slowly it raised a hand, revealing elongated fingers. Then a single claw tapped the camera lens, producing a faint metallic ring. Next moment, static consumed the feed. The camera must have shorted out. She closed the video, nauseous. A primal terror welled in her. The creature was not just an animal, it was cunning, almost malicious, toying with them. Carla couldn't rest. She scoured old park archives, historical notes, and local legends about Mammoth Cave. Many stories recounted weird sightings or vanishings over the centuries, from indigenous lore to pioneer tales of strange howls in certain forbidden tunnels. None gave a definitive explanation, but a consistent thread mentioned dark watchers or cave devils. She found references to cryptid hunters claiming a subterranean species lurking in uncharted passages. Myths or reality? She also discovered records of a half-dozen missing persons over the decades, most explained as cavers who got lost, bodies never recovered in the labyrinth. But the pattern was unnerving. Some notes mentioned scratched walls near the last known location. Others indicated partial footprints of unknown origin, all quietly buried in the files, overshadowed by the official narrative of a tragic caving accident. The puzzle pieces formed a terrifying picture. Mammoth Cave was so vast that any number of undiscovered tunnels could hide a predatory being. Something that thrived in darkness, that possibly had existed for centuries. The claw marks, the footprints, the watchers in the gloom. These were no illusions. Under mounting pressure media queries, suspicious rumor among staff, Mike asked Carla if she'd join one last attempt to confirm the creature's lair or presence. They'd bring a specialized team, 2 additional rangers, a local cave rescue volunteer with advanced equipment, and Trevor. The plan: to systematically check restricted corridors with better cameras, tranquilizer gear, and try capturing definitive evidence. Meanwhile, a minimal staff would guard entrances, ensuring no visitors stumbled in. The mission was set for the upcoming night when the creature seemed most active. Carla hesitated but felt compelled to see it through. She didn't want to cower at home while the threat persisted. This was her park, her responsibility, and perhaps they could discover a way to expel or contain the horror. She only hoped they wouldn't pay with blood. Night fell over Mammoth Cave. The expedition party of 5 descended with headlamps, high-lumen flashlights, tranquilizer rifles, plus harnesses and climbing ropes for more precarious sections. Each wore a radio headset tied to a portable relay, hoping to maintain contact. They navigated beyond the standard trails, into side passages rarely used. The atmosphere was stifling, silence broken only by dripping water and the crunch of boots. Every so often they'd freeze at a faint echo or distant hiss. Tension thrummed in the group. Mike led, Carla second, scanning meticulously. After an hour, they reached the corridor near the infamous claw-mark chamber. Their powerful lights revealed new gouges, deeper and more ragged. The stench of decay lingered. The volunteer caver muttered, "Feels like we're trespassing in something's territory." Carla nodded grimly, noticing how the walls seemed smeared with a dark residue. They advanced into the side chamber. The air was colder. Stones bore scratch marks all around, as if the creature climbed with savage claws. Piles of bones, some older, some disturbingly fresh, lay in a niche. The group exchanged horrified looks. Trevor murmured, "My God, it's feeding down here." The volunteer's face was ashen. A sudden clatter behind them made them wheel around. The corridor was empty, but a scuttling sound overhead made them jerk their flashlights up. Something large crawled across the ceiling out of sight. "There," Carla hissed. Mike raised the tranquilizer rifle, but the angle was impossible. Another team member fired a net launcher, missing. The creature's shape vanished into darkness, unbelievably agile. Hisses echoed around them, the darkness thrumming with movement. The team formed a defensive circle, flashlights darting. Shadows flickered across the walls. Then the creature's voice, or rather voices, erupted in mimicry. Carla's tone, Trevor's voice, even a childlike whimper. It was a horrifying chorus that echoed off the stone, confusing directions. Panic nibbled at the edges of the group's composure. "Stay together," Mike commanded. One ranger tried a calming breath, but it sounded shaky. They retreated carefully from the chamber, planning to lure the creature into an open corridor. But from a side passage, the gaunt figure lunged, slamming into the volunteer caver. A piercing scream. The volunteer dropped his gear, fell under the creature's weight. The rest of the team shouted shining beams, but the creature pulled him into the darkness with terrifying strength. In a flash it was gone, dragging the screaming caver away. The group heard his cries echo, then abruptly cut off. Horror froze them. Trevor shouted, "No!" and tried to follow, but Carla grabbed him. "We can't blindly chase, it's a trap." She choked back tears, guilt twisting her gut. The volunteer's life snuffed out in seconds. Chaos seized the group. They scrambled to find an alternate route, hearts pounding. The corridor shook with the creature's guttural hisses, accompanied by mocking mimicry of the caver's last scream. The gloom seemed alive with flickering shapes. Another ranger fired tranquilizer darts randomly into the darkness. The stench of rotting flesh rose. They retreated, step by step, keeping their lights scanning the ceiling, walls, floors. Carla's every nerve screamed that the creature could strike from any angle. She felt vulnerable, wishing for a vantage or open space. At one junction, the creature rushed them from above, snatching at Mike's pack. Mike shouted, firing a dart at close range. The creature hissed, lurching back, but with a swipe of a claw, it tore through the pack's nylon. Another ranger launched a net, partially entangling the creature. It snarled, thrashing in bizarre contortions. Carla seized the chance and pumped 2 tranquilizer darts into its torso. A screech split the air, echoing painfully in their ears. For an instant, the net-bound shape tottered, spindly limbs flailing. Then, with horrifying strength, it ripped the net, flinging heavy cords aside. The sedation was either insufficient or had no effect. The creature lunged at the nearest ranger, who dodged, nearly falling into a pit. Carla shouted, "We have to move!" they abandoned attempts at capture. The creature's resilience was beyond anything they expected. With hearts hammering, they sprinted down a corridor that led back toward a known route. The lights overhead flickered as the creature's screeches reverberated. Carla caught a glimpse of it bounding across a rock shelf, leaps powerful as a great cat. Impossible. She felt the primordial terror of facing an apex predator in its domain. Finally, the corridor opened onto a larger walkway with installed safety lights. The group slid to a stop, breath ragged. The creature halted at the edge of shadow, glaring. Between them stretched a pool of bright light. It gave a guttural hiss, stepping forward. Then the overhead lights blinked. The creature flinched, retreated from the brightness. Carla realized it disliked strong illumination. Could that be a weakness? Mike, trembling, signaled them to keep moving. The creature paced at the darkness's boundary, as if waiting for the lights to fail. The group advanced carefully, each step testing their luck. By some miracle, they reached the main chamber near the rotunda. Floodlights there offered a broad halo of safety. The creature hissed from the corridor behind them, refused to enter the glare. In the distance, a final mocking echo. "Carla, Trevor, help me." Then silence. They hurried up toward the surface, faces etched with shock. None spoke until they burst out of the cave entrance into the cool night air. Mike locked the gates behind them, face pale as he forced the steel bars. They had lost one volunteer. 2 rangers were injured, cuts from the creature's claws and a twisted ankle from that frantic chase. Carla's mind reeled with guilt and horror. No one slept that night. Emergency calls were made. The official statement to local authorities was that a rescue caver died in a caving accident. The truth was too monstrous to share without evidence. Park management quietly decided to keep the cave closed until further notice, citing an unspecified hazard. Rumors churned among staff, some quitting or asking for reassignment. Carla felt numb, haunted by the volunteer's death. She tried to process the memory of that net fiasco, the claws, the monstrous shrieks. One question loomed. How do we stop this thing? Its cunning, agility, and apparent sensitivity to bright light were known. Yet exploring the deeper caves again seemed suicidal. Some suggested sealing off all entrances with heavy gating. But Mammoth Cave has over a dozen known entrances, plus many hidden or private. The creature could slip out elsewhere, and even if physically trapped, could they truly bury a centuries-old labyrinth? At sunrise, Carla sat at her desk, head in her hands, sifting through shock and sorrow. She replayed the fleeting moment when the creature was in the net. If they'd had more powerful sedation or stronger restraints, could they have subdued it? Possibly, but the cost in lives was too high to attempt again. She typed up a thorough incident report, though much of it read like a horror story. She didn't care if her superiors doubted her. The video and the staff testimonies stood as proof. Days passed. The park remained closed, official statements vague. Federal investigators arrived quietly to look into the volunteer's death. Carla gave them partial details, escorted them to the site. They saw the claw marks, the bones. Their faces grew stony. Some made calls to higher channels. She overheard talk of quarantining the area, but she was left out of the final plans. Throughout that next week, staff on perimeter patrol reported odd sightings near lesser-known entrances. They found fresh scratches on gate locks, footprints in muddy sections. Once, a ranger glimpsed a tall figure retreating into the trees at dusk. Another discovered an abandoned campsite with shredded tents, no sign of the occupants. The tension soared. The local sheriff's office collaborated with park officials. Helicopters occasionally circled overhead, searching for fugitives. Carla, jaded, doubted they'd see the creature in broad daylight. It thrived underground, the dark its ally. At nights, some rangers posted watch near main entrances with bright floodlights. They'd occasionally hear distant wails or see fleeting movement at the edge of the beams. Fear spread among them, some suffering nightmares. Carla soldiered on, but her nights were plagued by the memory of that entity's rasping voice mimicking her name. One late evening, Carla was in the station alone, finishing paperwork. She stepped into the security room out of habit, scanning the camera feeds. She'd avoided them lately out of dread. But she forced herself, wanting to confirm no intruder had re-entered the upper corridors. The footage showed empty passages, mostly. She felt mild relief. Then on camera 6, a corridor near the rotunda aflicker. The overhead lamp flickered and a silhouette emerged, tall gangly black eyes shining. Carla's pulse roared. She turned up the volume, hearing only the hum of static. The figure moved slowly, stopping to face the camera. In a sudden jolt, it sprinted forward closer than anything she'd seen. Its face filled the screen mouth parted, showing black teeth or fangs. Carla recoiled from the monitor. The feed cut to static. She stared, chest heaving. After a minute, the feed returned to normal empty corridor. She slammed the system off. Enough. She was done. Let management handle it. She left the building, deciding never to check the cameras alone again. In the subsequent days, rumors whispered that certain officials planned a controlled collapse, or to fill certain deeper passages with rubble. Carla didn't know if it was true or feasible. Mammoth Cave was too massive to block effectively, but she heard talk of clandestine government involvement, possibly a decision to bury the entity or trap it. She realized no public announcement would ever mention a cryptid. They'd spin it as structural instability or sinkhole hazards. She felt torn, hating the secrecy, but part of her wanted the creature sealed away forever for the safety of future visitors. Then one morning, she found a nondescript note on her desk. Some things are older than we can handle. Let them sleep. Trust your instincts. It was unsigned, possibly from a sympathetic colleague or a local official. She accepted the message with a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Eventually, Mammoth Cave reopened certain safe zones heavily supervised. The deeper sections remained off-limits indefinitely. The official story was that structural collapses made them unsafe. Carla, exhausted, requested a transfer to a different national park. She couldn't walk those corridors again without recalling the volunteers' screams, the mimicry, the monstrous shape. On her last day, she stood at the edge of the main entrance, gazing into the yawning darkness. Memories flooded her. Joyous tours, fascinated children, the quiet grandeur of Earth's hidden wonders, now overshadowed by the knowledge that something inhuman lurked beyond the lantern light. She placed a trembling hand on the steel gate. A final goodbye. She could almost imagine faint claws scraping the stone far below. She left Mammoth Cave National Park soon after, never speaking publicly about the creature. She'd confided only in a few close allies, shared the security footage with them. They promised to keep an eye out. The park remained watchful, though the media eventually moved on, distracted by other headlines. Months later, in Carla's new assignment at a mountainous western park, she found her nightmares continued. She'd wake in a sweat, dreaming of corridors that twisted into infinity, of clawed hands scraping the walls. Sometimes, in the half-sleep hush before dawn, she heard a faint, echoing voice. Carla, help me. She'd bolt upright, breath ragged, knowing the cave was thousands of miles away, but feeling the presence had never left her mind. Back at Mammoth Cave, visitors walk the lit tour routes, marveling at stalactites and ancient rock layers. Rangers keep them within well-defined paths, not venturing too deep. If a tourist claims to see a shadow lurking just beyond the lamps, the rangers calmly explain illusions, flickering lights on damp rock. But behind polite smiles, a kernel of fear remains. They recall the claw marks, the tall silhouette. Sometimes at night, security cameras glitch with fleeting shapes, and those old corridors remain sealed, theoretically collapsed or blocked. Yet the staff occasionally find fresh gouges in the newly placed concrete. Whether the creature survived or a brood remains deeper, no one can say. The cave is ancient, labyrinthine, with secrets likely never to be fully uncovered. For now, the surface world goes on, ignorant of what may dwell in the silent blackness below. But those who have glimpsed that spindly figure and heard it mimic human voices know the truth. In Mammoth Cave there is an unseen horror, older than memory, thriving in the endless dark. And if you find yourself on a tour, hearing your name echo from a tunnel the ranger says is off limits, do not follow. When the lantern's glow grows faint, watch the corners of your vision. The shape you see flicker might not be a trick of the light at all, but the black-eyed watcher that no gate or collapsed passage can truly seal away.